Come and read more of my works on the website under Yuan. Keywords of the novel. Milk ball at 4.5 years old, 7 brothers doting on it without a pop-up window. Milk ball at 4.5 years old, 7 brothers doting on it. Complete download of TXT, Milk ball at 4.5 years old, 7 brothers doting on it. Latest chapter reading. Chapter 1. The Little Poor Apple Seller. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1. The Little Poor Apple Seller, December 24th. A city in A, which has just snowed, is cold and chilly. When the cold wind blows, their small faces turn red from the cold. She was wearing a very thin hoodie, which was picked up from the trash can. It was dirty and had several holes. When the wind blew, it made her 4.5-year-old shiver. She held a basket of apples, her soft and cute voice trembling incessantly. "Guo guo, do you want to buy ping and fruit? Sister, buy an apple, it's very sweet." She took small steps and kept chasing behind the crowd, selling the apples in the small basket step by step, but no one wanted to take a second look at her. With her head hanging down, she stood in the chilly wind, her cheeks flushed with cold, and her ears covered in frostbite, as if they would fall off her head with just a touch. The tattered basket had worn her hands covered in blood bubbles, but she dared not let go. The stomach let out a growl, and the apple that others sneered at was simply a rare delicacy in Mian's eyes. Before leaving, Mian only had a little dog food. "That meal is dirty and black, it's leftover from the dog." Looking at those beautifully packaged apples, she swallowed a mouthful of water, but didn't dare to touch a single one. Although she was tired, hungry, and dizzy, she continued to sell with her small body. Because Enlightenment said, if she can't sell these apples, break her legs. When he stood up again, Mian couldn't hold on anymore. His small body couldn't stop falling forward and fell into the snow. The apples in the basket rolled and got dirty with snow and mud. Mian felt like she was about to die from pain, but she still struggled to get up quickly and rushed towards the pile of falling apples. She reached out her little hand, trembling to wipe off the snow and mud, but the blood bubbles on her hand were scraped open, leaving the apple covered in blood and getting even dirtier in an instant. Mian's eyes turned red with anxiety. Just then, a woman suddenly stepped forward and rudely snatched away Mian's apple. "You useless hoof, you can't even hold an apple." Enlightenment cursed and twisted the flesh on her body as she spoke. "I didn't mean to. Don't hit me." Mian wanted to hide, but couldn't escape. Tears were falling, pitiful. Enlightenment stared at Mian, unable to breathe, and reached out to squeeze the tender flesh on Mian's body, saying, "You broomstar. Losing money. You can't even sell an apple well." Mian was so scared that she squatted in place and didn't dare to move. Enlightenment didn't care about her food every day. Mian could only wait for Enlightenment's dog to have enough to eat before stealing the dog's food while it was asleep. Sometimes when the dog discovers her, it will press her under its paw and bite her shoulder or leg. Now that she has grown up a bit, Enlightenment took her to the street and asked her to pretend to be pitiful and sympathetic, so that she could make money. But now the apples are dirty and she can't make any money. She's useless, and Enlightenment will kill her. Continuously lifting his head, his eyes watery with unknown strength, he suddenly ran towards Enlightenment's back. "How dare you run, you despicable hoof!" Enlightenment cursed and chased after her. "Stop me. Look at me if I don't peel off your skin." She ran tirelessly, but she was too hungry, too tired, and too cold to run. In just a few steps, she was about to be caught by Enlightenment. Looking into the distance in despair, what should I do? Is she really going to die? Mian's head was groggy and unable to see the road clearly. In the next second, Mian collided with something and her small body fell backwards. Continuously lifting his head, looking into the sky. In the blur, she seemed to see several figures. Who are they? Mian thought she was dead, but felt waves of warmth rushing towards her from around. Continuously lifting heavy eyelids, he looked at the person in front of him in a daze. I saw a little brother supporting her. The little brother glanced at the clothes that had been continuously soiled and rarely pushed her away. He looked up at Enlightenment with a cold expression and said, "Is this your child?" The little brother's childish face, only 12 or 13 years old, made Enlightenment feel nervous. She gritted her teeth and said calmly, "Of course it's mine. Don't meddle in your affairs, you little brat." Enlightenment approached and reached out to push him, but was restrained by the bodyguard behind the young man. "You, let go." Enlightenment couldn't react for a moment. When she tried to pull back her hand, her movements were too large. The snow she was stepping on slipped under her feet, and Enlightenment fell directly onto the ground. She grinned in pain and glared at the boy in front of her. "What are you doing, little bunny? This is my family's business, so you don't have to meddle." The young man is already outstanding in appearance, and wherever he goes, he is the focus of the crowd. The movement on this end has attracted the attention of many people. What situation is this? It seems like this boy gave this woman a push. The woman said this little girl is her daughter, but it doesn't seem like that. Whose biological mother can tolerate her daughter wearing such things in the cold weather? Realizing something was wrong, Enlightenment got up and was about to run. The young man said in a cold voice, "Seize her." A few bodyguards responded and pressed Enlightenment to the ground with a few strokes. "You, what are you doing? Let go of me." Enlightenment struggled and cursed, her face pressed in the snow turning blue. "Call the police." The young man's voice was cold. Even if this woman is the biological mother of this little baby, she shouldn't abuse a child like this. Two bodyguards were carrying Enlightenment towards the direction of the police station. Just then, another person came behind the young man. He glanced at Enlightenment who had been taken away, and then at Li Beichen and the dirty little bun in his arms. His face was filled with shock and he said, "Are you still Brother Chen? Can't you be possessed by something else?" Li Beichen, whom he knew, never meddled in his affairs, let alone holding a dirty little ball. You should know that Li Beichen has a serious cleanliness fetish, and anyone who touches him will make him allergic and rash all over. Therefore, even the people of the Li family respect Li Beichen, which also leads to his extremely solitary temperament. But now, Li Beichen is actually holding a dirty little girl. "Brother Chen, are you okay? Do you feel any discomfort?" Shen Yunting looked at him with concern. Li Beichen paused for a moment and shook his head. He didn't feel any discomfort. Looking at the dirty face of the little guy, his always solitary heart was filled with a hint of heartache, which made him abnormal as he never paid attention to these trivial matters. Shen Yunting looked at the unconscious lump of milk in Li Beichen's arms. Seeing her swollen face and ears covered in frostbite, he couldn't help but feel a pang of heartache and exclaimed, "This child is too miserable, isn't it?" Li Beichen was taken aback and lowered his eyes to look at the vastness in his arms. "Let's take it to the hospital first." End of this chapter. Chapter 2. Heartbreaking Little Girl. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2. Heartbreaking Little Girl. Outside the emergency ward of the hospital, two handsome teenagers sat side by side. The doctor issued 3 critical illness notices in a row. The little girl was seriously injured, with frostbite all over her face and ears, and many blood blisters on her hands. The little girl's gastrointestinal system is very fragile because she has been starving for a long time and has already experienced stomach bleeding. The little girl has multiple marks of injuries on her body. Among them, her left calf was once fractured, but it was not sent to the hospital. Instead, it was hastily treated. In order to prevent future damage, the bone needs to be broken again. Damn it, that little girl is still so young, they can take action. Shen Yunting's face turned pale with anger. The bodyguard of the Li family walked up and said, "Young master, that woman is a human trafficker. The little girl was kidnapped by her from outside, not her biological daughter at all. Li Beichen nodded and said, Shen Yunting looked at him and said, "What are you going to do, little girl?" Judging from her appearance, I probably can't remember who her biological parents are. Are you going to be sent to a welfare home? Li Beichen paused and instinctively wanted to reject this proposal. Let's talk more. The surgery lasted for 3 hours before it was completed. Mian was covered in gauze all over her body, and her palm-sized face was also covered in gauze due to frostbite. She could only see a pair of eyes and a small mouth, with a drip on the back of her hand, which was pushed out of the operating room by the doctor. The little one, lying on the hospital bed, is not half the size of the bed. At the age of only 4.5, her bed was filled with various instruments monitoring vital signs. The little girl frowned, as if she was not sleeping soundly in her dream. Li Beichen asked someone to take Mian to the VIP ward. On the hospital bed. The continuous eyelashes trembled lightly, and slowly opened their eyes, revealing a snow-white hue. She turned her head and saw Li Beichen beside her. The person in front of me has a face that has not yet grown, but I can still see that their facial features are very delicate. Facing the light, a pair of black pupils are full of shattered light. It's the little brother who saved her. Seeing Mian wake up, Li Beichen walked over and said to her, "That woman has already been punished by the law, and no one will bully you again." Continuously blinking. Turns out she's not a mother. What about the continuous parents? In the past, she was obedient to Hongmei's words. Although she was not good to herself, she persevered just to have a home. But now, there is no home. The little girl looked a bit stunned, and her voice softened as she spoke, "Thank you, little brother." Li Beichen was taken aback and looked at her. The little girl's voice was soft and she looked both obedient and pitiful, which piqued his interest. He couldn't help but reach out and stroke the little girl's hair. "What's your name, little one?" "My name is Mian." A soft voice spoke. Mian looked like a cautious little rabbit, curiously glancing at Li Beichen beside her. Li Beichen was very interested in this little guy's reaction. Thinking that he had been sleeping for so long, he must have been hungry. He made a phone call and the bodyguard guarding the door walked in with a food box. There are shrimp dumplings, rice noodles, egg soup and rice porridge. The food variety is complete and looks very delicious. Mian couldn't help but gulp down her saliva. Seeing her pitiful expression of wanting to eat but not daring to speak, Li Beichen regained a little patience and asked her, "What do you want to eat?" Continuously watching, my nose couldn't help but itch and sour, and I couldn't help but feel a bit like crying. This is the first time that someone will ask her what she wants and care about her feelings. Seeing the continuous appearance, Li Beichen was taken aback, as if his heart had been hit by something. The little girl's eyes were black and she looked both good and cute. "I'll go, this is really Brother Chen." Will Brother Chen show such an expression? The door of the ward was pushed open through a small gap, with 2 heads written outside. The young boy was the former Shen Yunting, and a woman stood beside him. The woman's eyes were filled with shock, unwilling to miss even the slightest movement in the ward. Is today's sun coming out from the west? Her son, who doesn't kiss anyone, is patiently coaxing a child to eat. You should know that her son's personality is extremely solitary. Although he is a genius, he has a strange allergy to people, and has not had any friends since childhood, which directly led to Li Beichen suffering from depression. Severe depression can also be life-threatening. As Li Beichen's mother, Qin Yuya worries every day, afraid that Li Beichen will come at any cost. She let her best friend's son Shen Yunting look at her own son, but unfortunately, the son and Shen Yunting were not very close, only to the point of occasionally saying a word or two. In order to cure Li Beichen and make him happy, or is it finally effective for her to eat fast, recite Buddhism, and engage in charity every day? Li Beichen was indeed attracted by Mian. Anyone who sees such a serious injury will shudder, and he is no exception. Looking at his smooth, white, and pure face, deep down in his heart, a kind of emotion that had never existed before was rapidly taking root and sprouting. That emotion seemed to be heartache. This kind of emotional entanglement made Li Beichen feel inexplicable. Qin Yuya looked at the bodyguard behind her and sternly ordered, "Go check the identity of this little girl. I want to see all her information within half an hour." "Yes, madam." The bodyguards left, and Qin Yuya once again turned her gaze to Mian's palm-sized small face. "This little girl looks likable. The Li family has 3 generations, giving birth to all stinky kids without any daughters. If they could adopt a little girl, it would seem good too." Qin Yuya thought about a more unexpected scene that happened to her. Li Beichen even took the porridge bowl to feed the little girl. Li Beichen picked up a bowl of rice porridge from one side, scooped it up with a spoon, put it under his lips and blew it. After he was sure that it would not burn to the brim, he sent it to her mouth and fed her one mouthful at a time. She swallowed the rice porridge in her mouth. The rice porridge is fragrant and warm, which is the best thing she has ever eaten. Mian's stomach and intestines are very poor. He can't eat too much at one time. After drinking a small bowl of rice porridge, Li Beichen covers Mian's quilt. Mian hasn't rested for a long time. After closing his eyes, he falls asleep. On the side, Li Beichen looked at the continuous sleeping face and felt a warmth in his heart. What surprised Li Beichen even more was that he should have started to have a headache at this time as usual, but he had nothing to do today. Is it because of the continuity? Looking at the cute and silly little face that was falling asleep, Qin Yuya stood up and left the ward. She had someone investigate the matter of Hongmei and Mian. Madam, Mian was indeed kidnapped by Hongmei, and the identity of her biological parents cannot be determined at the moment. Qin Yuya held a report on Mian's injuries. Mian had been suffering from cold and hunger all year round, and Hongmei, who didn't even have a serious profession, was shameless enough to rely on Mian to beg and support her along the street. Thinking of the continuous and pitiful expression of grievances, Qin Yuya let out a long sigh, a pitiful child that made people feel sorry. Isn't that Hongmei sent in? There's no need to let her come out again in the future. Qin Yuya handed the document back to the bodyguard, and a hint of cruelty flashed in her eyes as she said, "Go and take care of it. Choose a few good inmates for Hongmei." End of this chapter. Chapter 3. Mian's favorite brother. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3. Mian's favorite brother. Okay, madam. A city women's prison. Hongmei was so angry that her teeth were itching. Damn it, didn't you just let her sell an apple? As a result, so many trivial things happened, and she was even taken to prison. You are really a loser. However, this is not Hongmei's first time coming in. Anyway, Bangjia's daughter will be sentenced to 7 years at most, and she will eventually be able to leave. Hongmei thought and lay on the bed in prison, intending to rest first. It's so cold outside, anyway she doesn't have any money, coming in just happens to enjoy life. At this moment, the prison door was kicked open with a bang. Hongmei was startled and glared at her with curses, shouting, "Oh, are you crazy? This is it." The leader looked disdainfully at Hongmei and said, "Are you Hongmei?" Hongmei was taken aback for a moment and instinctively nodded. The other party was not polite and threw a fist at her. Hongmei fell off the bed, her nose collapsed, and several of her teeth fell out. "Who are you? Why do you hit me?" Hongmei covered her broken nose and looked at the person in front of her in fear. The other party took 2 steps forward, grabbed Hongmei's hair, and without hesitation, punched her again. "Ah! Kill, kill!" Hongmei trembled like a lump of rotten meat towards the door, clamoring for mercy and saying, "Help, is there anyone here to take care of it?" The prison guard at the door seemed unaware, just drinking tea from the cup. Who doesn't have a child in their family? Kidnapping and child abuse deserve to be beaten up. In Hongmei's request for help was fruitless, and she was pinned to the ground by a group of people. Even without Qin Yuya's orders, there were women in the prison who were mothers. They naturally wouldn't be soft on this kind of child abuse animal. In Hongmei had her arm broken, her nose collapsed, her teeth fell out, and she was sick leaning against the wall. In the future, I will beat you up every time I see you. Damn it, I'm sorry. The others left cursing and cursing, while In Hongmei curled up in pain and hid in a corner, afraid to speak back. In the hospital. In my sleep, Mian seemed to have come to a different world. Mian felt that her body was very light, and her surroundings were soft, as if she had fallen into a pile of marshmallows. Looking around in confusion, he said, "Where is this duck?" The surroundings gave her a very comfortable feeling, making Mian not feel afraid. Continuous. Continuous. Turning back in confusion, he looked at the source of the sound and saw a young man in a blue robe sitting in the mist. The boy's clothes were scattered in the clouds, with half of his long hair scattered on his shoulders and the other half fixed on his head with a white decoration. His eyebrows and eyes were gentle, and there was a tear stain on the bottom of his eye. At this moment, he was reaching out his hand to her. Mian, come on." Continuously blinking, the big brother in front of her looked carefully, but she still didn't move her steps and stood in place, dumbfounded, asking, "Who are you, a duck?" "I am the Destiny Star Lord." The Destiny Star Lord looked at Mian and couldn't help but let out a long sigh. 3 years ago, due to a mistake, he was abducted from what was supposed to be a smooth life, and his 3 brothers were also affected by bad luck. The future road will be bumpy, and he may even die young. If the fate of the Hua family cannot be changed, their luck will gradually dissipate, which will lead to the downfall of the entire Hua family. Mian, are you willing to worship me as your teacher?" Minga Xingjuan looked at Mian. He finally met Mian in his dream at the cost of his 300 years of cultivation. The time has not yet come for Mian to reunite with the Hua family. He prophesied that the Li family would face difficulties. 500 years ago, the ancestors of the Li family once showed kindness to him. He calculated that Li Beichen would be in danger, and the person who could save Li Beichen was Mian. Therefore, he sent Mian to Li Beichen's side. As long as Mian can find a way to transport Li Beichen, not only can she save him, but the good fortune accumulated in the process can also save the now endangered Hua family. A lingering and somewhat confused crooked head. What is Minga Xingjuan vegetarian? Seeing Mian's incomprehensible expression, the Destiny Star sighed and said to her in a different way, Mian is willing to help the people around her. They will all be your family in the future. Hearing that I will have a new family, I have been longing for the continuity of having a home, and my eyes are bright. Mian is willing to worship the lion and tiger to be you. Mian looked at the Destiny Star, although her words were illogical, that kindness was revealed from the depths of her soul. The smile on her face unfolded, containing happiness. Minga Xingjuan looked at the sensible and kind-hearted little girl in front of him with emotion. He drew a spell, which penetrated into her body and left a red mole on her forehead, making her look like a little Fua. From today on, I will be your master. I will teach you the method of transportation, and I will also protect your smooth life. My name is 10 Directions. After finishing his last sentence, Minga Xingjuan's figure gradually disappeared into the clouds and mist. Mian could no longer see the 10 directions, she blinked and woke up from her dream. Is it a dream? For some reason, she felt a force nourishing her body invisibly, allowing her body to heal quickly, warm, and very comfortable. In the blink of an eye, 10 days have passed and the continuous injury has completely healed. Even the attending physician responsible for helping Mian with her injuries couldn't help but exclaim, I never expected such a serious injury to heal so quickly. The little girl is really strong, and she will definitely be a lucky child in the future. Li Beichen looked at Mian beside him. Recently, Mian has been eating very well every day, and with the support of 10 directions of strength, Mian's originally thin face has become a bit more round than before, with a powder-carved jade carving. Mian's family is not in Hongmei, let alone that woman who is already in prison cannot take care of Mian at all. Upon learning about Mian's discharge today, Qin Yuya quickly rushed over. According to her investigation, 2 conclusions can be drawn. Mian was lost from home around the age of 1, and it is currently unclear who her biological parents are, and it will take some time. Li Beichen looked up at his mother. "I want to keep this little baby," Li Beichen said coldly, as if he just wanted to keep a cat and dog. Qin Yuya was taken aback for a moment. She originally thought her son had become too fresh these days and planned to send her to an orphanage, so she came over urgently to stop him. After all, it's too difficult to find her own son to confront someone who is not allergic. But she didn't expect that Li Beichen would take the initiative to adopt Mian. "Son, you like this little sister so much." Qin Yuya looked at Li Beichen excitedly, feeling deeply moved in her heart. Continuously blinking his eyes, he raised his small face and looked at Li Beichen beside him. Although she had long known from Shifang that she would become a family with her beautiful brother, her eyes were still filled with anticipation, hoping that she would be liked, have a home, and have someone to ask for. She doesn't want to be alone, being alone is so scary. Li Beichen looked at Mian and rubbed her soft hair on her head as before, answering Qin Yuya's words, "Well, this little thing is very likable." Okay, as long as you like it. Mom, go help Mian with the adoption procedures now." Qin Yuya was so excited that she was about to jump up. God bless her, she will not waste her days doing charity and praying to Buddha. Her son finally shows signs of improvement. Watching Li Beichen and Mian holding hands together, Qin Yuya was extremely excited and immediately drove to handle the procedures. Mian was a child kidnapped by human traffickers, and she was also saved by Li Beichen. Qin Yuya also met the conditions for adoption and was approved quickly by the authorities. Li Beichen looked at Mian and pinched her small nose. "From now on, you will be my sister." Her rolling eyes were black, and she liked her beautiful brother and beautiful aunt very much. She could feel the kindness in their hearts. Upon hearing Li Beichen's words, Mian nodded vigorously and said, Mian will have a home again in the future. End of this chapter. Chapter 4. One object descending one object. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4. One object descending one object. Looking at the continuous smile, Li Beichen seemed to be infected and laughed heartily. His smile is very bright, it is a pleasure that comes from the bottom of his heart, not forced or fake. He feels that his heart has been purified a bit, it is a very relaxed and joyful feeling. Seeing Li Beichen, he was very happy. He pursed his lips and looked up carefully. Well, I will help you with your housework and wash your clothes. Although I am still a little young, I will soon learn to cook. I will do a lot of work in the future, so can I have congee every day? The rice porridge that my little brother fed her that day was so delicious that she wanted to eat it every day. After being mistreated by Ing Hongmei for a long time, she has understood that the benefits must be obtained through labor. In the past, she would only occasionally give her 1 or 2 expired bread to eat when she was helping with the red plum. Although the bread was a bit hard, it was still fragrant and sweet compared to dog food. Li Beichen looked at her pitiful appearance and felt a bit sad in his heart. He held on to his soft hand and looked at her solemnly. From now on, I will be your brother. I have enough food to manage, and you don't need to work. If anyone dares to bully you, come to me, and I will vent my anger on you. Li Beichen patted his chest, feeling like a little adult. Li Beichen's words made Mian extremely happy. This sounds a bit familiar, probably in a dream. Her dream has come true. Brother, Mian loves her brother the most. Qin Yuya just came out of the office and saw a sweet smile on her face. Turning back, I saw Qin Yuya and approached her with short legs, hesitating whether or not to speak. In the past, whenever Ing Hongmei heard her call her mother, she would scold her, calling her a scumbag, a loser, and not worthy of being called that. Looking at the little girl in front of her, Qin Yuya genuinely liked her. She felt that Mian had a joyful energy all over her body, no wonder she was able to take down the young master at home. Mian can call me Mom or Aunt Qin in the future. Qin Yuya smiled and looked at Mian. After hesitating for a moment, he sweetly spoke, Mom, hey. Qin Yuya was so excited that she hugged Mian into her arms and lowered her head to take a sip of incense on her small face bag. After Qin Yuya let go of Mian, Li Beichen came forward with a small handkerchief, wiped away the lipstick marks on Mian's face, and then threw the handkerchief into the trash can. It was his exclusive treasure that others couldn't touch, and neither could his mother. Qin Yuya felt somewhat helpless about Li Beichen's possessiveness. With Mian, Li Beichen and Qin Yuya boarded the return train. On the way, Li Beichen kept typing on his phone, occasionally frowning and pondering, supplementing. Qin Yuya rarely saw her son so devoted to something, and curiously asked, as soon as I got on the car, I saw you doing it. What are you doing? Li Beichen didn't say a word, but he checked everything from beginning to end and sent the documents on his phone to Qin Yuya, saying, just prepare according to these first. Qin Yuya was taken aback and quickly clicked on the document. The document is clear and full of things that the little girl needs to use, including clothing, food, shelter, and transportation. Everything is complete and detailed, including what materials are needed for furniture, what materials are needed for blankets and clothes, and what style is needed for the room. The word count is like a guide to raising sisters paper, and it must be at the doctoral level. Her son's condition has worsened since suffering from depression and 3 suicide attempts, becoming a serious emotional disorder. He can't feel the emotions of others and doesn't care about anyone around him, but now he is so devoted to Mian. Oh, by the way, we also need to hire 2 female bodyguards who know martial arts for Mian. We can't let Mian lose her anymore. This statement left the driver stunned. My young master really likes that little girl and gives her the best in everything. Qin Yuya was so excited that she couldn't express herself. She quickly said, Mom, let's find someone to arrange it and definitely give Mian the best. Qin Yuya looked at Mian's small face, her hands trembling with excitement. Previously, when she looked at Mian, the little girl was covered in injuries all over her body. Now, when she looked at Mian, she was very beautiful and looked fortunate. She had to quickly inform the child's father and grandfather, as well as her uncles and cousins at home. Under the arrangement of Li Beichen, the Li family's old house began a major renovation. Qin Yuya had no choice but to take her son and Mian to the villa she had bought a long time ago, because there was no one living in the villa for a period of time. Li Beichen's eyes were filled with disgust. Li Beichen stood in the corner, watching the bodyguards cleaning the villa inside and outside, while 2 nannies stayed in the kitchen cooking. At this moment, ding dong. The doorbell rang. Shen Yunting heard the news that Mian had been adopted by Li Beichen, and immediately rushed over with a gift. He held a toy rabbit in his hand, and when he saw Mian, he happily stuffed the rabbit into her arms and said, This is a gift for you. You are Chen Ji's sister, and also my sister. You can call me Shingu in the future. Shen Yunting liked Mian more and more as he looked at her. Holding the fragrant and soft little rabbit in her arms, she blushed and smiled sweetly at Shen Yunting, saying, Thank you, brother Shen. Seeing Han smiling at everyone and others giving her a happy look, Li Beichen felt a bit uncomfortable. He instinctively hoped that this little silly person could only smile at himself. Li Beichen called the family bodyguard and said, Ask the person in charge of decoration to turn around and place 2 one-meter-old rabbit dolls on the cotton bed. Okay, young master. After the meal is ready, it is served on the table. The food on the table was fragrant, with dishes, meat, and seafood. For Mian, it was even more abundant than during the Chinese New Year. Mian couldn't wait to serve the table, drooling over the dishes. Shen Yunting pulled Mian onto the table, took a deep breath, and then casually served Mian some food. Mian, eat quickly. Li Beichen still stood at the door. Qin Yuya tilted her head in confusion and couldn't help but say, "It's okay, don't worry about him. He's just like that. He never eats with us at the same table. When we finish eating later, let someone give him a separate serving." Mian couldn't understand Qin Yuya's words. All she knew was that the dishes on the table were very fragrant, something she had never eaten in her life. She used to be the last one to eat at Ing Hongmei's house. It's the dog's turn to eat after Ing Hongmei finishes eating, and it's not until the dog finishes that it's her turn to eat. She instinctively felt that every last person who ate was pitiful. Qin Yuya and Shen Yunting worked hard to pick up vegetables for her, and soon, the bowls in Mian's arms were stacked high into a small hill. Mian didn't rush to eat, but brought a bowl and came to Li Beichen's side. She took a shrimp from the bowl, removed the shrimp skin, blew it with a pout, and fed it into Li Beichen's mouth. She said to him in a milky voice, "Brother, eat quickly. If you eat late, there won't be anything delicious left, you can only eat the skin." End of this chapter. Chapter 5. With brother here, no one can bully you. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5. With brother here, no one can bully you. Qin Yuya looked at Mian's movements and was so surprised that his bowl fell onto the table. Mian, don't say goodbye. You can eat it yourself, brother. However, she had no time to stop. Li Beichen was originally feeling helpless and sorry for the little guy in front of him due to his continuous words, but suddenly he was stuffed with a shrimp. You should know that what he had eaten before had to go through several rounds of disinfection. He didn't even know how to eat the shrimp that had not been disinfected without wearing gloves. Li Beichen's body stiffened for a moment, and he looked at the expectant eyes. For a moment, cold sweat broke out in his palms. He couldn't eat or vomit, and his whole body was numb. Before Mian realized it, she had already started peeling the second shrimp. Her small hands were oily, and Li Beichen was about to faint from the sight. Looking at Li Beichen without moving, she realized something was wrong and asked in confusion, "Isn't it delicious?" She lowered her head and smelled it, which was clearly very fragrant. Not wanting to disappoint Mian, Li Beichen swallowed the shrimp 3 or 2 times, as if half of his life had been removed. His face turned red, and when he saw Mian continuing to feed, he quickly said to her, "No, I'll do it myself." Continuously blinking. Li Beichen helplessly walked towards the table in the eyes of continuous attention. Seeing her own son reluctantly endure, Qin Yuya was overjoyed to see her robot-like cold child develop human emotions for the first time. She hugged Mian and said, "Our Mian is really amazing." Mian didn't understand where her strength was, but she looked at Li Beichen without moving her chopsticks and urged him, "Brother, eat quickly." Li Beichen trembled all over and had to pick up his chopsticks. Shen Yunting laughed to the point where tears welled up and joked, "This is called one object surrendering one object. I'm too embarrassed to let Mian call me brother. If I can subdue Qinggu, I should call her brother." Upon hearing this, Li Beichen couldn't help but glare at Shen Yunting. Shen Yunting looked at Mian and suddenly said, "Has Mian not bought clothes for a change yet? There happens to be a shopping mall nearby, why don't we take Mian for a stroll together, so that Mian can recognize her way home?" Shen Yunting suggested with a smile. Qin Yuya did not refuse. "That mall is owned by the Li family, and I happen to be going over to do something today." Both eyes fell on Li Beichen. Li Beichen has been solitary since childhood and has a serious obsession with cleanliness. He definitely wouldn't go to places like shopping malls where there are many people. But now the two people's eyes coincidentally turned to the nearby Mian, with a hint of anticipation. Li Beichen instinctively wanted to refuse, but thought that his sister couldn't wear clothes without them, so he agreed to be good to her. Li Beichen stood up and looked at the two people, go and return quickly. Although this was just a small step for Li Beichen to compromise, it was a big step for Qin Yuya and Shen Yunting. The two of them felt that since Mian came, the world has become a better place. The driver drove a few people to the mall. Qin Yuya still had work to attend to and couldn't continue strolling around with San Xiao only. She took out a card from her wallet and handed it to Mian, saying, "The password is 6 zeros. If you have anything you want, buy it yourself. Don't be shy." Continuously looking at the black card in hand. She knew that there was money inside, which was a very precious thing. Qin Yuya looked at Li Beichen and said, "Your brother's personality is a bit awkward. Mom needs you to help me take care of him. Can Mian agree to Mom?" Looking towards Li Beichen, the little brother was the only person in the past 3 years who could smile at her. Mian nodded and said, Mian will definitely protect little brother." Qin Yuya's face was filled with a contented smile. Seeing Qin Yuya leave, San Xiao only began to stroll around the mall. Li Beichen pulled Mian into the children's clothing store. Although he felt that the surrounding environment was very dirty and uncomfortable, Li Beichen patiently began to choose Mian. Mian was holding a card and swaying in the store. The clothes in the store are so beautiful, several times more beautiful than what she wore before. Mian was momentarily stunned. On the side, the staff of the children's clothing store glanced at Mian, who was small and had a face that was not as scarred as before, but also showed some malnutrition. In addition, the clothes on his body were borrowed from Li Beichen. Although it was purely handmade customization, the design was very low. Key. Mian looked like an inconspicuous little pudding, and with a look of, never seen the world, the salesperson frowned. "Where did the bear kids come from? These are all high-end goods, don't damage them." The shop assistant walked forward and politely drove Mian away. For a moment, he hesitated and instinctively protected his head as he saw the other person about to take action. On her forehead, a faint light flashed through the red mole. The clerk who was originally waving at Mian was instantly bounced out and fell to the ground, glaring fiercely at Mian. Where did that little ghost come from? How dare he even push someone? The noise on this end caught Li Beichen's attention. As soon as he arrived, he saw the clerk staring and cursing, and his face immediately became displeased. "Throw her out." The clerk didn't expect Li Beichen to say that. Although the Li family is a wealthy family, due to Li Beichen's solitary personality and unwillingness to appear in public, most of these people do not know him. "Do you know where this is? If you cause trouble here, can your parents afford to pay for it?" the shop assistant scolded as he saw two little brats daring to act recklessly. Li Beichen frowned. Noticing the clerk's malice towards Li Beichen, he just looked over with a soft and dissatisfied personality, maintaining a clear posture. "Don't say your brother." Li Beichen was taken aback for a moment, not expecting to be continuously maintained. At this moment, Shen Yunting also walked over and looked at the scene in front of him with confusion. "What's going on?" The salesperson knew Shen Yunting and thought he was here to consume himself. He was afraid that Mian and Li Beichen would ruin Shen Yunting's interest. The salesperson immediately approached and smiled, saying, "Master Shen, I'm sorry, there's some conflict here. I'll handle it immediately and drive them all out. Don't mind." Shen Yunting raised his eyebrows and said, "Get out of here." "Who are you taking?" The shop assistant was taken aback, and Li Beichen raised his eyes and lifted his thin lips lightly, saying, "You don't have to come to work from tomorrow." "What?" The shop assistant was confused. Shen Yunting kindly explained to the side, "This is the young owner of your store. The shop assistant was struck by lightning. Everyone knows that the only young master of the Li group has a solitary personality and is unlikely to go out easily. Who would have thought she would bump into him? The shop assistant's face turned pale, and he had no previous haughty attitude. He flattered Li Beichen and said, "Li, young master Li, I didn't know it was you. You pick whatever you want, you." Li Beichen ignored and pointed to the little girl beside him, apologized to her. Everyone knows that there is only one unique seedling in the Li family, and the salesperson doesn't know who Mian is. However, seeing Li Beichen's maintenance posture, she didn't dare to neglect it. She quickly bowed to Mian and said, "Sorry, miss, I was wrong. Please forgive me." Blinking incessantly, no one ever apologized to her. She glanced at Li Beichen beside her. Li Beichen felt proud in his heart, his sister, no one can bully her. Looking at the little girl's round head, Li Beichen couldn't help but reach out and touch her head. He took Mian to the side, not wanting the person to dirty Mian's eyes. "You can choose what you want. With my brother around, no one can bully you." End of this chapter. Chapter 6. Mian wants to give a gift to her brother. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6. Mian wants to give a gift to her brother. Upon receiving Li Beichen's words, she nodded happily and sweetly, feeling that someone was protecting her. Li Beichen pulled Mian to select in the mall. Suddenly, Mian saw a stationery store, which was neatly packed with a lot of paint. She reached out her chubby little hand and pointed towards the direction of the paint, looking at Li Beichen with a hopeful expression on her face. "Brother, Mian wants that." Li Beichen looked over and found it very interesting. Li Beichen nodded and ordered, "Pack all the colors and painting tools together and bring them back." Good. The assistant behind nodded and approached, packing things according to Li Beichen's words. Mian, why did you buy so much paint?" Mian wants to give her brother a gift. Mian smiled and looked at Xinyunting. Brother treats Mian extremely well, and Mian also wants to give her brother a gift in return. However, Mian doesn't know anything, so let's draw a picture for my brother. Oh, Mian can still draw. Xinyunting bent down, his face becoming increasingly pink and tender since getting better, making him want to pinch it every day. Mian hui. Mian, the little ghost, crossed his waist and looked at Xinyunting with a thud. Mian really likes drawing. Mian didn't have the money to buy a paintbrush. Before, she used to pick up paintbrushes and paper from the trash can to draw. Xinyunting nodded solemnly. "Chen is your brother, and I am also your Yunting brother. Are you going to give me a pair as well?" Before Mian could speak, she was interrupted by Li Beichen beside her. "No way. The continuous painting can only be given to me." Li Beichen arrogantly took Xinyunting's hand away from his soft little face, then led it to his side and took a handkerchief to wipe away the dirt that didn't exist on his soft face. "Xiao Hanbao, you're laughing so happily at everyone," he said, continuously blinking. Glancing at Li Beichen and then at Xinyunting, he obediently said, "From now on, I will only smile at my brother." "Sure." Li Beichen nodded. Xinyunting raised his eyebrows and shouted discontentedly, "Why? My sister, why are you laughing at me?" Li Beichen glanced at him. What these words say? Xinyunting is so embarrassed. What kind of damn possessiveness is this? Those who know are my younger sister, while those who don't think they are a child bride. Li Beichen walked into the dress shop with Mian and picked out a few beautiful Lolita dresses for her. Even the salesperson on the side couldn't help but praise him repeatedly. "Miss is also too cute. This dress fits perfectly." Outside the mall, an internet celebrity happened to pass by and saw Li Beichen, saying, "Isn't this the young master of the Li family who never goes out? Li Beichen is handsome and always turns his head wherever he goes." Previously, his domineering act of saving Mian on the street was photographed and sent to someone, receiving countless likes and reposts. The person kept peeking outside the glass window, only to see a little girl dressed in exquisite Lolita come out of the fitting room. The heart of the internet-famous little sister was instantly melted. Oh my goodness, this is the little girl saved by Mr. Lee, isn't it? It's so cute. The internet celebrity didn't hesitate to take out the device and shoot the continuous scene inside the store. This is the mysterious young master of the Lee family who never shows up. The little girl who came out of the fitting room was saved by young Master Lee. From what I see, the little girl should have already been adopted by the Lee family. The law of conservation of character. This is too cute. Lu Xing Garden. I envy being adopted by the Lee family, and it would be great to have such a handsome brother who can eat and drink without worries in the future. Pre-poverty alleviation member. I love it so much. My older brother personally took my younger sister out to go shopping and buy clothes, and they have such good taste. I envied them and punched my older brother twice with my backhand. In a dress shop. Standing in front of the mirror, my clothes were both comfortable and beautiful. Her old clothes were all picked up by Enlightenment from the trash can, dirty, torn, and smelly. The clothes her brother gave to her were even fragrant. Mian looked at Li Beichen and said, "Is this a beautiful dress that only princesses can wear?" In the future, Mian will also be a princess, able to wear these beautiful dresses every day. Seeing Mian's liking, Li Beichen directly took out his black card and said, "Stop picking, pack everything and take it away." The story of Mian and Li Beichen going shopping together quickly spread. Compared to being continuous, the condition of Enlightenment can be described as unbearable. Last time, Enlightenment was beaten up and argued with someone, but found that no one paid attention to her. Unable to seek medical treatment, Enlightenment could only endure the pain. In just a few days, Enlightenment was completely emaciated, with sunken eyes and cheeks, both physically and mentally enduring immense torment. Enlightenment broke her teeth and swallowed into her stomach, living a cautious and anxious life in prison. Every night in prison, you can take a look at your phone to relax. Enlightenment accidentally stumbled upon a video of an internet celebrity girl. In the video, Mian is cute and adorable, and many people are praising her. Despite being young, Li Beichen still looked handsome on his gentle side, and the two of them stood out against each other. Yi lacks quality. The little girl is so cute, the person who kidnapped her before should have died. Spicy Hot Pot Pure Edition. Please comment upstairs. With the power of the Li family, she can be locked in for life even if she is not dead. Ziqing is not Qing. Support keeping her locked up for a lifetime. Enlightenment was so angry that her teeth itched and she threw her phone aside. If it weren't for him taking care of a continuous bite of food, this little slut would have died long ago. He cared about her food and clothing, and she went out to earn money for them. Isn't it natural? And as a result, she was caught and subjected to such inhumane torture. Enlightenment is so angry. At this moment, someone accidentally passed by Enlightenment and with a loud splash, a pot of hot water poured over her body. She let out a pig-killing roar and glared at her, "You're looking for death. Didn't you see anyone else here? People. Are you a human being? You are a beast." The man spat. Enlightenment is the most deceitful person in the prison. The man thought about it and kicked her twice. Enlightenment bared her teeth in pain, and immediately vented her anger. He begged for mercy and said, Don't hit me, I was wrong, I don't know Mount Taishan, you let me go, let me go." Enlightenment begged bitterly, but in her heart, it was a pain. If I had known she would have been more kind to Mian, or sold her directly to the Li family, maybe she could have earned a lot of money to avoid this kind of imprisonment. Wait, when she can go out one day, she must kill that bastard. My heart was filled with thoughts about the gift I had given to Li Beichen. As soon as I entered the house, I began to sit at the table and draw. Mian painted diligently, leaving some paint on her pink cheeks. At this moment, the door of the continuous room was quietly pushed open by someone. The people at the door were a bit excited, their hands trembling as they grabbed the door handle. Is this my precious daughter? End of this chapter. Chapter 7. Thunder, Continuous Fear. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The source has no content or has errors. Chapter 8. Mouth water on brother's face. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8. Mouth water on brother's face. I let out a continuous crying hiccup. What's going on? Why is Mian crying? Is she feeling unwell? Qin Yuya was also startled and hurried over. Seeing Mian's wrinkled face, she felt extremely sorry and quickly hugged Mian into her arms, her eyes filled with worry. When there was thunder in the past, no one cared about her. Mian liked her mother's warmth very much. I don't know why, but the more she liked it, the more she felt wronged and wanted to cry. Tears kept falling like she didn't want money. Seeing Mian like this, Qin Yuya felt even more heartbroken and coaxed in a gentle voice, Mian is good, Mian is not afraid, it's just thunder, there's nothing to be afraid of. Silent and muffled. It's not thunder anymore, go to bed quickly, Mian. Qin Yuya put Mian back on the bed, but the little girl couldn't sleep anymore. Li Beichen looked at Qin Yuya and said, Mom, you go find a storybook and I'll coax her. Qin Yuya was taken aback. She still has a lot of work to do tomorrow, and indeed doesn't have much energy to soothe her, but can this kid handle it? He doesn't seem to be able to coax girls either. Qin Yuya was skeptical, but still brought a fairy tale book. Li Beichen sat by the bed, opened the book, and read, a long time ago, there was a big bad wolf in the forest. He wanted to be good friends with Little Red Riding Hood. No. Mian shook her head. I've heard this story before. The big bad wolf wants to eat Little Red Riding Hood's grandmother. This is different from what you've heard, Li Beichen shook his head solemnly. Upon hearing interesting content, Mian was fully focused and her fear had gradually dissipated in her heart. Suddenly, it lit up outside the window. Qin Yuya's heart lifted in an instant. It's going to thunder again. At this moment, Li Beichen, who had been telling stories in a gentle voice, suddenly put down his storybook and reached into the soft blanket, starting to scratch his itch. Ha, itchy, brother, don't make a fuss, it's so itchy. Bang. Ha, brother, stop it. Mian is getting angry. The laughter of the two children was accompanied by thunder, and Li Beichen's attention was diverted. Mian didn't even realize that there was thunder outside. Qin Yuya couldn't help but shake her head and sigh as she watched this scene. Her son, like a little wet father, is better at soothing children than a woman who has raised a son for more than 10 years. It seems that she was too worried. Her own son has a talent for soothing children. Qin Yuya thought and quietly walked out, handing Mian over to Li Beichen for care. Li Beichen told Mian a story all night. The child's energy was limited, and after struggling for a while, he fell asleep again. Li Beichen thought about giving orders tomorrow to add more soundproofing facilities to the spacious room. He also huddled under the blanket and fell asleep. Early the next morning. Li Beichen has always been accustomed to living alone, and for the first time sleeping with someone else, he was a bit uncomfortable. But thinking of Mian's fear of thunder and her fear of being awakened, Li Beichen still held back and remained motionless. Li Beichen felt something constantly arching into his arms. Immediately afterwards, he felt his face wet, as if there was water on it. Is it because the house is leaking rain? Li Beichen raised his eyebrows and woke up from his dream. He saw a small face with long eyelashes like a small fan, a small and cute nose, and pink lips slightly open, muttering something that Li Beichen didn't understand. Crystal liquid gushed out of his mouth. Wait, liquid from the mouth. Is it thinking of a certain possibility? Li Beichen suddenly fell asleep and struggled to get up. However, because he had already hid by the bed, he didn't pay attention and fell to the ground with a loud bang. Li 8th level cleanliness obsession. Beichen's face twisted and his hands shook uncontrollably. After living for over a decade, no one dares to drool on his face while sleeping. The sound of Li Beichen falling to the ground startled the initiator, who was inexplicable. She only remembered that she seemed to have eaten a lot of good food just now, and her stomach was full, and the food was delicious and fragrant. Gently rubbing his eyes, the sound of Li Beichen landing also startled Qin Yuya, who was sleeping next door. What's going on? What's going on? Li Beichen was at a loss, pointing to his face, his whole body stiffened as if petrified. Qin Yuya finally saw some kind of crystal-clear liquid on Li Beichen's face. Thinking of Li Beichen's obsession with cleanliness, Qin Yuya's heart also jumped with a thud. It's over. My son's cleanliness obsession is so serious, shouldn't it be too persistent? This is not acceptable. Qin Yuya thought and immediately called the butler to bring a handkerchief in, wiping Li Beichen's face while observing his expression. I saw Li Beichen get up from the ground and run towards the bathroom with his head down. This is going to take a shower. Mian finally regained consciousness and lay on the bed, drooling at the corner of her mouth. She looked at the empty space next to her and couldn't help but ask, "Where's brother?" "Your brother has taken a shower." Continuously blinking. Does older brother need to take a shower early in the morning? Mian doesn't understand. The next second, Mian saw a wet patch on the pillow. She reached out and wiped her mouth, realizing that something seemed to be wrong. She couldn't have dripped water onto her brother while sleeping, could she? Continuous hindsight. Woo is so embarrassing. She even drools when she sleeps. Isn't this just like that big yellow dog that always bullies her? Will my brother despise her? The more I thought about it, the more uncomfortable it became, and tears began to fall down again. She's already a big baby, how can she still drool while sleeping? I was wrong, I won't be able to do it again in the future. Qin Yuya smiled and comforted, don't cry, be good. Did you dream of eating delicious food? Let's go downstairs and have breakfast, okay? There is my favorite congee for breakfast. Qin Yuya comforted with a gentle voice. It is said that congee is drunk. The continuous greediness is uncontrollable, and stops shedding tears. The mouth begins to secrete saliva again. As if suddenly realizing something, Mian covered her mouth with both hands, her resolute and stubborn appearance, as if reminding herself that Mian is a big child who cannot drool. Seeing Mian's reaction, Qin Yuya was overjoyed and walked downstairs with Mian. As Mian sat at the table, Li Beichen finally took a shower and came out. What he saw was Mian sitting at the dining table, staring straight at the food but not eating, with her small hands still covering her mouth. Li Beichen was puzzled and said, "What is this for? You can't drool continuously." A soft little milk voice came from under the palm of your hand. Li Beichen was speechless and looked at her with interest, then you cover your mouth and won't eat anymore. Mian feels a bit conflicted. She wants to eat, but drooling will be disliked by her brother. Two black lines appeared on Li Beichen's forehead. Put your hands down, eat. Blinking incessantly, he finally obediently put down his hand. Qin Yuya turned around and saw that even after her own son had been washed clean, he didn't move his chopsticks. He still looked conflicted, with furrowed eyebrows and a pair of red earlobes, looking strange. What's wrong with you? In theory, Li Beichen's lack of continuity proves that she has not been excessively influenced by cleanliness. But now, which expression is causing trouble? Li Beichen pursed his lips and remained silent. The morning saliva not only dripped on his face, but also on his mouth. How could he speak such a thing out loud? This feeling is like he kissed little cry. But isn't this kind of thing something adults can do? Thinking of this, Li Beichen's face turned even redder, like a cooked shrimp. End of this chapter. Chapter 9. Not getting close to other boys. You are listening at Novel Full. Audio. Chapter 9. Not getting close to other boys. The incident of being drooled by Xiao Hanbao made Li Beichen feel very uncomfortable for half of the morning, and he remained calm and silent. Qin Yuya quickly called her best friend to bring Shen Yunting over to accompany Mian after finishing breakfast, and then went to work with her husband with a nervous heart. Husband, do you think Chener won't stop being carefree? I always feel a sudden feeling in my heart, Chener's cleanliness obsession. Thinking of this, Qin Yuya couldn't help but feel goosebumps all over her body. She even had a scene in her mind of the great demon King Li Beichen asking people to throw little Dot on the road, coldly scolding him. Wife, are you daydreaming again? Li Sihan supported his forehead, grabbed his wife's shoulder, patted her chest, and promised, I will never let Chener throw my daughter out. Qin Yuya curled her mouth and said, who the final say between you and your son? You don't count in your heart. After speaking, she let out a silent sigh, hoping that when they returned today, they could still see Mian staying at home well. Li Jia. After finishing breakfast and returning to the room, I was bored for a while, sometimes lying on the sofa, sometimes lying on the bed, feeling uncomfortable. In the past, whenever she opened her eyes in the doghouse in the morning, Ing Hongmei would drive her out to beg for food or help her sell things. Sometimes she was so busy all day that she couldn't even drink a sip of water. But now, on such a leisurely and comfortable day, she is a bit uncomfortable. It's so boring. Zaichuanzi lay on the bed with a big character, his short legs dangling in the air, and his mind remembered the awkward expression on his brother's face during the meal just now. Is my brother really angry? She's really useless. It's all so big and drooling while sleeping. More importantly, she even dripped her mouth onto her brother's face. Thinking of this, she couldn't help but feel a bit angry, pouting and blushing. What if my brother doesn't like me anymore? The more I thought about it, the more sad it became, and soft sobs came from the room. Squeak. Xiao Mian, how are you staying at the Li family? Brother Shen has come to see you. Shen Yunting was carrying Black Swan's latest cheese strawberry cake in his hand, and smiled as he pushed the door in. However, when he saw little Tuanzi looking at him with red eyes, his heart suddenly froze. What to do? How pitiful. So cute. He had already heard about what happened this morning from his own mother, and he was also startled and even broke out in a cold sweat. According to Li Beichen's personality, if he doesn't throw this little girl out, he can be considered Amitabha Buddha and shows great kindness. I just responded to Aunt Qin's call and quickly came over. If Li Beichen had any embarrassing thoughts, he would stop him immediately. Don't cry, Xiao Mian. What did Brother Shen bring you? Shen Yunting opened the cake and squatted down in front of Mian. Try it. Gently wiping away her tears, the fragrance of strawberries made her swallow her saliva. It smells so good. With a tearful tone, she suddenly felt even more sad in her heart. Perhaps this was also the last time she saw a strawberry. Thank you, Brother Shen. Mian picked a strawberry from the cake and took a bite in her mouth. The sour and sweet strawberry juice burst in her mouth, making her happy and unhappy. Eat well. Shen Yunting also laughed along. No wonder Li Beichen treated this little girl special. Who wouldn't like such a lovely little girl? His heart is about to melt. If you like it, eat more. Next time, Brother Shen will buy it for you. Shen Yunting couldn't help but reach out to touch her round little head, but was stopped just as his hand was about to touch the sponge. Shen Yunting. Li Beichen suddenly appeared behind the two, with a gloomy face and a cold voice. Shen Yunting suddenly froze, his outstretched hand neither touching nor retracting. He could only mechanically turn around and look at him, Beichen, you're here. You said you too, why are you scaring her, little girl? You scared me too. Li Beichen took the opportunity to withdraw his hand and awkwardly smiled, Xiaomian Mian, are you right? Seeing Li Beichen, Mian put down the small strawberry in her hand, covered her mouth with both hands, and looked at him with round eyes, blinking like stars. Li Beichen glanced at her and blushed in his ears. He walked up to Mian and picked her up. Shen Yunting was so scared that he jumped up and set the cake aside before rushing to the door to stop him. Hey! What are you doing? Isn't it just pouring water into your face? What's embarrassing about that, isn't it? Just wash it clean, okay? Besides, how big is Xiaomian Mian? It's all milk flavored and not dirty. It's not easy for you to pick up people, how hard is it to throw them away? Li Beichen had a black line on his head, and the more Shen Yunting spoke, the darker his face became. Shut up! Li Beichen suddenly whispered, trembling in his arms, scared by him. Shen Yunting didn't say anything more, coughing lightly to conceal his embarrassment. He sensed the lingering fear and lowered his tone, you can go home now, I won't lose her. Also, this is my sister, you're not allowed to touch it. Li Beichen looked dissatisfied. If you talk about this matter, it's all over. Li Beichen's intimidation clearly had an effect, and Shen Yunting watched as he carried Mian to the study, standing in place and sighing. No. What did he take Xiaomian to the study for? However, looking back on what young Master Li had just said, he still chose not to be so reckless and cautiously followed up. Want him to leave? No way, he took care of Xiaomian Mian according to Aunt Qin's instructions. In the study, the serious atmosphere made Xiaomian even more nervous, and her hand, which was covering her mouth, became tighter. Isn't it uncomfortable to hold it so tightly? Li Beichen placed Xiaohan's bag on the sofa, and then picked up a stack of children's picture books from the desk and placed them on his lap. Put your hands down. Staring at Li Beichen and shaking her head, she didn't let go. If her brother saw her mouth, he would definitely think of that thing. What a shame. Woo. If you don't put it down again, you can play on your own. Li Beichen's mouth curved slightly, and a hint of cunning flashed in his eyes. As expected, Xia Hanbei immediately put down his hand and sat upright, saying, Mian wants to play with my brother. The smile at the corner of Li Beichen's mouth grew stronger, and his silly little bun really cared about him. Also, you can't get close to boys other than your brother, Li Beichen said solemnly, pinching Xiao Hanbao's face. You're a girl, and men and women don't get married. Can't brother Shen also do it? Li Beichen sneered, of course not, Shen Yunting is not a good person. Outside the study, Shen Yunting, who was listening in the corner, was stunned. Li Beichen. What are you talking nonsense about? Are you really good at teaching bad children like this? But brother Shen brought me strawberry cake, which is very good for Mian. That's not possible either, Li Beichen denied without hesitation. End of this chapter. Chapter 10. Enlightenment Education. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10 Enlightenment Education. Brother, what does it mean that men and women don't have sex? Li Beichen remained silent for a moment. Xiao Hanbao was so small that he couldn't explain it to her so clearly. Anyway, even if she said it, she didn't understand. Men and women can't have a clear sex, they can only get close to their brothers. Li Beichen said very seriously, word by word. Shen Yunting at the door almost didn't stand firm. Li Beichen, this damn possessiveness. Xiao Mian nodded solemnly and said, Mian knows. You are already past the age of enlightenment education, and the teachers outside are not reliable. My brother personally teaches you. Li Beichen held Mian onto his lap and wrapped his hands around her, opening a children's picture book. How many of these words do you know? Looking at the ant-like words on the picture book, my head shook like a wave, feeling a little guilty. I don't even recognize them. Ing Hongmei never allowed her to come into contact with books before. Even if she enjoyed drawing, she could only stand outside the shop window of the tutoring class and secretly watch other children learn, picking up old crayons that they didn't want. Brother wouldn't mind her, would he? Li Beichen pointed to the words on the book and said, starting from today, my brother will accompany you to study every day. What do you want to learn? Li Beichen had already planned a blueprint in his heart. He must take care of Xiao Han and make him the most powerful academic bully. No one can mock him. Mian wants to learn everything. Mian was very excited and moved around in Li Beichen's arms. Let's start now. Throughout the day, apart from eating, the two of them hardly ever left the study. At first, they were a bit hesitant, but Li Beichen was surprisingly patient. In addition, with Mian's intelligence, the two of them had already learned most of the book in a short while. Shen Yunting occasionally glanced at Qin Yuya in front of him and expressed surprise at their progress. As the sun set in the west, Li Beichen came out of the study holding the sleeping Mian. Shen Yunting sat on the sofa watching TV and saw the two of them immediately jump up. Are you asleep? You're also very ruthless. She's only 3 years old, why don't you teach her a whole day? Shen Yunting exclaimed, biting fiercely at Beichen's ruthlessness. He poked his head out to see how little Mian was sleeping, but Li Beichen turned mercilessly and said, Mian is not like you. She is smart and eager to learn. Why haven't you gone home yet? Shen Yunting patted his buttocks and said, it's almost time to go home for dinner. Seeing how well you treat Xiao Mianman, I can rest assured. Li Beichen's face sank, he felt relieved. Xiao Han Bao is his own person, it's his turn to worry. Get lost. Shen Yunting, accustomed to Li Beichen's ruthlessness, left the Li family with a smile, but happened to meet Qin Yuya rushing back at the door. Aunt Qin. Shen Yunting waved his hand and greeted him. Qin Yuya rushed up and grabbed him as if grabbing a life-saving straw. Yunting, how are you doing? As if handing over intelligence, Li Beichen lowered his voice and solemnly said, Auntie, successfully completed the task. Li Beichen is in a good mood for the time being, so he shouldn't want Xiao Mian. He taught Xiao Mian children's picture books all day today, like a wet dad. Shen Yunting's evaluation surprised and delighted Qin Yuya, but it was unbelievable. Milk, Dad. Really? Qin Yuya's pretty eyebrows and eyes widened several times, and Shen Yunting nodded heavily. That's right. Qin Yuya finally regained her composure and breathed a sigh of relief. As long as Mian can stay, it's good. Since Mian arrived at the Li family, her son has finally become somewhat human. By the way, are you going home? Just have dinner at Auntie's house and then go back. Shen Yunting waved his hand and said, no need, Auntie. I'll just go home and eat. My mom is still waiting for me to go back and report the situation to her. Qin Yuya twitched at the corner of her mouth. Her best friend is the most gossip. Okay, but in the future, Auntie will have to trouble us Yunting. Qin Yuya handed him a set of the latest Lego toys from the trunk. This is Auntie's thank you gift. Thank you, Auntie. Shen Yunting was riding home in his own car with gifts in his arms, and when Qin Yuya saw the children's picture books in the study, he smiled with relief, even moved to tears. Mian is really her lucky star. Jiya. Li Beichen's eyes showed a hint of surprise. Mom, you're back. I'm back. I heard you taught Mian how to study today. Are you tired? Otherwise, how about Mom sending Mian to school? Qin Yuya observed Li Beichen's expression. If she guessed correctly, no need, I'll do it. She's still young, and the teachers outside are all mediocre, making it easy for her to teach poorly. She is currently in a critical period of enlightenment, and with so many little boys in school, it is easy to guide her to ruin her silly little bag. Li Beichen refused without hesitation, but Qin Yuya smiled and said, "That's okay. Are you so concerned about Mian that you're not angry about what happened this morning?" Li Beichen remained silent, with an imperceptible awkwardness in his eyes. "There's nothing to be angry about, it's just a little bit." After finishing, Li Beichen packed the children's picture books one by one and carried them to the spacious room. Qin Yuya was stunned in place, watching her son's actions, almost startling her chin. "It seems that Yun Ting is right, Chen air has changed. It's changed." Qin Yuya felt that his ancestral temple had to endure the high fragrance of 3 days and 3 nights in order to exchange for his son's significant change in temperament. At the dinner table, Li Beichen ordered the congee shop prepared by the kitchen to leave her to wake up and eat because she was still sleeping after a long day of tiredness. Of course, she did not eat with others. Qin Yuya's mood improved as she saw him being so careful. "You don't want Mian to go to school, are you worried about being bullied?" Qin Yuya said while drinking bird's nest congee. Li Sihan beside him suddenly became angry and said, "Who dares to bully my daughter?" Qin Yuya glanced at him and suppressed his voice, "Who made you speak? Don't ruin my good deed." Okay. Li Sihan immediately shut up and waited for his wife to play. "They dare not." Li Beichen did not take the kindergarten children seriously. "But Mian was adopted by us after all, so outsiders must have some gossip. If you're worried about Mian, my mom thinks that if we prepare a marriage ceremony for Mian, it would be just right. What do you think?" Once they recognize their relatives, Mian truly belongs to the Li family and needs to enter the ancestral temple and establish their surname. End of this chapter.